So if you've been thinking about moving to Vancouver, Washington, there's a good chance you've also been wondering about Portland, Oregon. And people are probably asking you, have you thought about both cities? Well, that's what we're going to talk about in this video. We're going to compare Vancouver, Washington to Portland, Oregon. Are you ready? I am. So let's do this. Here we go. Hey everybody, it's your host Dave Baker with the Living in Vancouver, Washington team. Now, if this is your first time on the channel and you want to know everything about what it's like to live, to work, to eat, to sleep, and to get outdoors and have some fun in Vancouver, Washington, or in Portland, Oregon, then you know what you've got to do. You've got to click that little subscribe button and tap that little bell so you'll be notified every time I put out a video all about living in Vancouver, Washington, living in the Pacific Northwest, and the whole area. Now, if you're thinking about moving to Vancouver, Washington, or Portland, Oregon, then you've got to get in touch with us, okay? You can send us an email, you can send a text message, give us a call, schedule a video down below, and we'll have a call together, because I am constantly talking about Vancouver, Washington, talking about Portland, just talking about Pacific Northwest with so many people and about all the cool things that it has to offer. So make sure that you reach out and get in touch so that we can help you relocate and make your move to the Pacific Northwest. Now, real quickly, I want to mention the reason that this comes up. Because when people talk about moving to either city, I mean, if you're thinking of moving from somewhere to Portland, Oregon, or you're thinking of moving to Vancouver from somewhere, people often bring up the other city. And if you're wondering why that is, well, it's because they're very close together in some respects. Physically speaking, from one downtown to the other, it's about 8 miles if you're going over one bridge. And if you're going over the other bridge, the distance that separates the two cities, again, is like 8 or 10 miles. That's on the eastern side, not where the downtowns are. But even so, they're quite close because they're separated by the Columbia River. That was my river. You see that? There actually is another river just south as well called the Willamette River. We'll let it go this way. So that's why sometimes you'll see references to either river when people are talking about the neighborhoods. The Columbia River is literally between Washington and Oregon, but the Willamette River is actually in Oregon and flows through Portland, Oregon. So I've made a list of a couple of the things here. I did a little bit of research, and I'm going to throw in some my own insights from being in both places and let you know what we're seeing, what we hear, and what we feel. So let's talk about it. Okay, number one, the taxes. You have two totally different tax issues in the various states. In Vancouver, Washington, you're in Washington state, so you have no state income tax. In Portland, Oregon, you're in Oregon state, therefore you have no sales tax, but you have the other ones in each state. So in Vancouver, you're in Washington with no sales tax. Oh, I almost mixed that up. You're in Vancouver with no state income tax in Washington, but you do have sales tax. On the other hand, when you're in Portland, Oregon, you definitely have one of the higher income tax states. It's not a secret. You can easily look it up. It's a state that has a higher income tax, but you have no sales tax. So that's something you have to weigh out with your own earning and spending situation to see how those things will affect you. I have found that people are very excited when they hear the words no state income tax. Hearing no sales tax is also cool, but it doesn't seem to generate the same level of excitement because you might not shop a lot, you might not really buy many things. There are some things in Washington that don't have sales tax, certain items. I don't have the full list, but there are definitely certain items like there are maybe in your state or wherever you live today. But that's definitely something to consider because when you're moving, depending on your income, it can really affect you, especially if you're moving from a low tax state and then you move into Oregon, that could affect you. If you're moving from a high tax state, let's say you're moving from California to Washington, like so many people do, or even if you're moving just from Oregon to Washington, you're going to go from having high income taxes to having no income tax. Wow, what a difference, right? So that's a big issue depending on your unique situation. Okay, let's look at number 2. City size. Vancouver is a much smaller city than Portland, Oregon. Portland, Oregon is a much bigger city. Now, I have some recent statistics, and in Vancouver, Washington, out of 2019, we saw there were about 181,000 people living in the city. And in Portland, Oregon, there were about 655,000 to 665,000 from one report I saw in 2021. So think about it. It's 4 times as big in Portland, Oregon. And that goes not only for the population, but really the size of the city. Portland is a very large city from one end to the other. And it has a lot of different neighborhoods. It's quite large. Now, Vancouver can feel large in some respects too, but there's more rural area. You're gonna see more greenery. You're gonna see more grass, more beautiful, beautiful tall trees in open spaces. Now, don't worry, Portland has a ton of beautiful trees, okay? They have Forest Park right in the middle of their city. You're talking about one of the biggest forests inside of a city in the country. It's really cool. No matter which side you go on, don't worry. You're gonna have a lot of green, a lot of trees, and it's gonna be really nice. You're gonna have similar weather. They're 8 miles apart. You know, the weather is quite similar. Okay, let's move on to the next item. Item number 4, and that is Vancouver has fewer walkable neighborhoods. Portland has many walkable neighborhoods. What is walkability? Well, if you're my family, you say, we used to call that convenience, Dave. Sure, let's call it convenience. Walkability, convenience, means you can walk places. Portland, Oregon has so many neighborhoods where you can walk. You've got the Pearl District, you've got Mississippi, you've got Alberta, you've got Killingsworth. You have so many neighborhoods with your local shops, your local stores, your local restaurants, cafes, bars, etc. If you demand a walkable life, yeah, Portland is going to offer that. Portland has so many places where you can walk. In Vancouver, there are some neighborhoods where you can walk to the downtown. Of course, there are some areas you can walk to the waterfront, which is close to the downtown, but it is in walkable distance. Don't forget, as you go further north in Vancouver along like Main Street and Columbia, you'll also come into what's called Uptown, which is connected to downtown, you know, but I think it was really cool how they made that transition, calling it Uptown. So you had downtown and Uptown. I give them credit. That's fun. I remember when I first saw that sign, I'm like, how creative is this? You do have that walkability. You also, on the east side of Vancouver, you can live by some of the shopping centers. If you live over by 205, meaning the highway or freeway 205, that's, you know, on the east side as opposed to being on western Vancouver where you're going to be closer to the 5 freeway. And there are some places you can live in walkable areas. Now, don't forget, to the east of Vancouver, Washington, we have Camas, Washington and Washougal, Washington. Really cute little cities that I like. They're very close. They're adjacent, basically. They're just a few miles down 14. That's the highway or the freeway, if you will. And both of those cities have their own little downtowns. So they have what I like to call Main Street USA. So if you want to live in Camas or Washougal, definitely let us know because those are really cool places too. And you've got their walkable neighborhoods. So you do have that. It's just that they're, you know, in different regions or technically in different cities, if you will. But you do have some walkability. But Portland is rated as one of the most walkable cities in America. It's famous for that, okay? And same with the bicycling. When you're in Portland, there are so many bicycle maps. It's amazing. I was down at the travel center or the tourist office, whatever it's called at the time, and they said, do you like to bicycle? And I said, yeah, I love it, and I have a scooter, and I love that too. And they said, oh my gosh, here's a map. And it wasn't one map. It was like a map of each little region of the city. It was very unique. I was to a Vancouver visitor center as well, and they actually had quite a few things on there too. What's cool about Vancouver though is you also have a lot of like hiking areas that are also very close by. You have the lakes, things like that. So you get a lot of outdoors activities in either city. But if you absolutely want to walk to a lot of restaurants, you know, that is a Portland thing. So okay, are you ready to jump into the next one? I'm looking down because I'm thinking. All right, in my research and my life experience, I will go into number 6. Vancouver has fewer stores and shopping and commerce, and Portland has a lot of shopping and commerce. This really falls in with the walkable thing and what kind of lifestyle you want. In Portland, there's a ton of places to go. You have a lot of local stores. A lot. You have a lot. There are a lot of local stores. You've got all kinds of local stuff. Tons of local, I've seen local nurseries, like a lot of those little nursery stores, local restaurants that you only see in Portland. There's a huge food cart scene. In Vancouver, you have a lot of local businesses as well, but not as many. And not just that, you don't have as many commercial shopping centers or commercial areas. Now, in Vancouver, you do have more, I see more strip malls, I see more shopping areas, shopping centers. In fact, there's some nice new ones too, newer. And when I go over them, I'm like, wow, these buildings are great. These outdoor malls are really nice. I'm calling it a mall. They might call it a shopping center or a strip center, but you've got a lot of shopping centers there. But in Portland, you have more of a local feel, where you have specifically only local stores, which is very unique. You don't see that in a lot of cities. In Portland, you don't see a lot of chain restaurants either. In Vancouver, you don't see a ton of chains either, but you don't have the same vibe. You don't have that same super local, hyper local feel. So keep that in mind. Now, is that important in a life decision of where to live? Maybe. I think when I'm in Portland, I think, wow, look at all these local places. I've never seen so many bicycle stores or cafes and all those types of things. And it's fun, okay? I mean, it's fun to see all that stuff. And it's fun to walk. It's really fun to walk. When I'm in Vancouver, I drive more. I mean, I have to drive from one location to another. I don't think, oh, let's walk from wherever I am to the supermarket, or let's walk from wherever I am and get coffee or have dinner. I think of hopping in my car and driving over there. Unless, of course, you're close to the downtown, right? Or if you can walk to the waterfront, or if you happen to be able to walk to one of your own neighborhood shopping centers. That's the thing right there. Portland has these streets, they call them the neighborhoods, and they'll have like more main streets, like you'll have in Washougal or Camas, Washington. You have more main streets. So there you go. Now, this stuff might have something to do with the next item on the list, and that is Vancouver is probably more conservative, and Portland is known for being more progressive. That is a very personal thing for a lot of people, and it's up to you what you are looking for in a city where you live. That brings different types of developments. It brings in different types of governance and the way things are run. It brings in probably a different type of people. You know, it's not a secret. You'll see different people wearing different shirts. They'll be expressing their opinions, on their shirts. They'll have hats on, and they'll have their different sides of the political spectrum. Whatever's good for you, that's what's available, right? And it's something that's kind of well known. And that goes in with our next item. And I think these things flow together a little bit because of the way that, the cities are growing and the way that things are handled. And it's that, Vancouver has less controversy and Portland is in the news, right? Portland has been more frequently in the news. Portland, Oregon has been in the news quite a bit. Vancouver, Washington, you don't really hear about that on the news all the time, do you? If you hear about Vancouver, people think you're talking about Canada. It's so funny, but Portland is, Portland's in the news for some reasons. They've got things going on there, the way they handle some situations, it's very different. It's not for everybody. I feel like when I'm in Vancouver, you see less graffiti, for example. It feels a little bit cleaner overall, depending on the neighborhood. So remember, there are a lot of beautiful neighborhoods in both cities. Portland does not have graffiti everywhere. It does have it in some parts, like in the downtown. So those are things that you might notice when you're down there. And that's another thing that we should just touch on since we're talking about the downtown. Vancouver has fewer homeless people, and you see a lot more homeless activity in Portland, Oregon. You might think all these things flow together for a reason. These last few that I've touched on, they are things that people bring up. So we have to talk about it in the video, right? You're trying to decide where to live. Do I want to live in Portland, Oregon? Do I want to live in Vancouver, Washington? What are the pros and cons? What should we be looking at? And those are things that can affect some people. Obviously, the way things are handled in one city is different than the way things are handled in another city. And that's what's great about America. You can choose the place where you want to live that hopefully meets your needs. So those things are issues for a lot of people. They do bring them up. And when I talk to people, they ask me about those things. They'll say, oh, well, do you see that stuff? Do you ever see, graffiti, or do you ever see certain things? And well, yeah, but it's not a secret. It's on the news all the time in both areas. And it actually, some of it makes national news too. So that's something that you want to think about. And, when the team shows you around and tells you all about the different places, let them know what you're thinking when you reach out. Send an email, send a text message, and let's get the conversation started, and let us know what's important to you, right? You want to let them know what's important to you, and that'll help find the perfect home for you. But here's the thing. Both of them are amazing places to live, and they both offer a lot of things. I want to talk about a few of the similarities, right? Being that they're only a few miles apart, right? Both locations have a lot of outdoor activities. You've got the Columbia River, the Willamette River. You have quick access to these day trips. You could go to Mount Hood, which is fun in the summer and the winter, by the way. If you haven't been to Mount Hood, make sure you check it out. There's activities. They have these two parks. There's Hood River, which is on the Oregon side, of course. On the water, you can go to the west. I don't know why I'm pointing this way, but we're going this way. And to the west, both cities give you easy access to Astoria, to Cannon Beach, to Newport, to Seaside, to Lincoln Heights. Those are on the Oregon side, right? Now, if you go up along the coast on the Washington side, you've got Long Beach, you've got Oceanside. You've got these places that have cool small towns that you can go visit. It's fun for families. It's fun for kids. There are places for adults too. So both cities give you the close proximity to somewhere to drive. You have a lot of outdoor activity. I know I've mentioned it a few times, but it's because it's something that I really, really noticed. Before in my life, I didn't really spend a lot of time outdoors. But when I came to the Pacific Northwest, it felt so different because everyone's always talking about going outdoors. Speaking of which, I also want to mention both have access to beaches. Now, there are some really cool beaches along the rivers. If you're coming from California to Washington, or you're coming from Florida to Washington, or any place where you have, a beach, maybe you're coming from New Jersey and you're moving to Washington or moving to Oregon, you might be thinking, well, it's not along the coast, right? Well, the city is not on the coast. Vancouver is not on the coast, and nor is Portland, Oregon. It's not on the Pacific Ocean. But sure, you have those places you can drive in just 1 hour. But also, there are beaches along the river that are so nice. There's a beach I love in Lake Oswego, Oregon, you can drive down to. There are a lot of little beaches along the Willamette River. There's the Selwood neighborhood. They have their beach down there, which it's really fun. You go get a sandwich and you go down there and you eat and you can go in the water. You have all these other places where you see people dropping their boats into the rivers, places that have kind of, they're like docks or piers where you can walk out. You see people sunbathing, they're laying in the sand. They bring their dogs down to the river. Tell me it's not cute when you see a dog swimming in the river. I mean, a dog that knows what it's doing, right? They're so cute. But you get all of those things in both cities. But here's what's great. Whichever city you choose, you can drive from one to the other. It's very convenient. If you want to spend a night out on the town and you want to go to the Vancouver waterfront, which is so pretty, you just drive over the bridge if you live in Portland. Or if you live in Vancouver, Washington, and you're thinking, gosh, I want to go out for a night of dinner and have some drinks and go dancing and then walk around and get some delicious ice cream. You just drive on down to Portland, right? It's no big deal. There's also a lot of shopping. So if you want to run some bigger errands, maybe you can't find what you want in one city, no problem. Both of them are in reasonably close proximity to Seattle for a trip, right? 2.5 hours, maybe 3 hours. Voila, you're up there in Seattle, Washington. You can also drive to Canada, right? It's about 6 hours. Depends on how quickly you're going and the amount of stops you take, but it's not that far to drive to Canada. Isn't that cool? I mean, think about it. You can go from the Couve to the Couve. right? You can drive from one Vancouver to the other Vancouver. And it's also a pretty scenic drive. Both of them also have access, just so you know, to the casinos that are in both states. Obviously in Vancouver, you have a larger casino that's a bit north of there. Both have concert venues, by the way. I've seen concerts in both places. In Portland, you have the Big Moda Center. Then on the Vancouver side, of course, you have a concert venue and entertainment venue up in Ridgefield, Washington, which is also pretty close by. You do have those entertainment options on both sides of the river, wherever you choose to go. So, the key differences between the two when you're thinking are obviously going to be, the political stuff we mentioned, obviously, and then you've got your walkability and kind of the lifestyle you're looking for. Both have a nice laid-back feel, though. Both Portland and Vancouver have a nice laid-back feel. I do want to say that, and I enjoy that. There's clearly more traffic on the Portland side, so don't forget about that. We should include that on the list. If you're commuting in Portland, there's definitely more traffic on the Portland side than there is on the Vancouver side. In Vancouver, Washington, there's very limited traffic, so definitely keep that as a factor on your list as well. All right, everybody. So remember, if you're thinking about moving to Vancouver, Washington, or Portland, Oregon, you've got to get in touch with us, okay? The team cannot wait to help you. Send us an email, send us a text message, give us a call 24/7, nights and weekends. We've got your back with your move, and we want to help you. Are you ready to schedule a call with a video chat? Get down there and click that Zoom call link so you can schedule your call right now. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and tap that notification bell, because every time I see a new subscriber, I get inspired to put out new videos all about the cities. And I cannot wait to tell you more about these awesome locations. Take care, everyone. See you soon.